live.
Oh, my goodness.
All right, folks, welcome to another episode of the Mikey V Show. This is our other podcast, the sister to the Boston Comedy Show that we do every week with my partner, Joey Voices. Today, we're on the Mikey V podcast with a gentleman I've been trying for years to nail down. And this guy has so many great stories that should be known to the public. We'll edit a lot of them out, but when we were just going over the timeline, it's been 22 years.
22 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Caleb Powers.
Oh, Mike, it's good to be here.
I wish I could have a title. You know, we all, podcasters, comedians, entertainers, blah, 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 blah. Your background, business coach, life coach, you had your own business coaching business, financial advisor, so many categories, and you were so great, and are so great at all of them. And you and I had met, like I said, 22 years ago when I was working at WBZ, and the CBS company had hired you to come in and train us.
So funny story about the whole career trajectory thing. So my daughter was a senior in high school last year, and they part of sort of the senior experience is they invite different adults from different careers to come in and talk to the students about it.
Did they have to query you?
What's that?
Did they have to query you?
Yeah, they queried me. Actually, I got queried back when I was in a Cub Scout den guy. But anyway, so like they had the corporate attorney who came in and talked about his legal career, and then they had like the guy in law enforcement, and it was so and so career in law enforcement, and then Hannah's dad shows up, and his thing is the curiosity driven career. And so, like the kids all showed up for this talk, and I'm like, hey, if you don't know what you want to do with your life, join the club. Because honestly, like, that's okay, too.
Yeah, there's a guy in a beautiful cop uniform, there's a Navy SEAL there, and then there's you in your LL Bean vest.
Right.
And your Adidas.
I mean, and that's really, like, if I think about my career, like, it's always been just driven by a curiosity about the capital markets, the stock market, curiosity about, coaching and professional training and development, curiosity about, but I think the one thing that I discovered that's the thread that weaves all of that together is to be helpful in some way. Like I've always had this desire to just help people.
And we had started, when we came in the studio and Dominic was getting us all set up, and round of applause to our producer here, Dominic. Emerson College, right?
Mm-hmm.
Graduate Emerson College. And from there, where was your first landing?
So even Emerson's a funny story, because I had such a dreadful high school career that Emerson, I didn't even know what Emerson was. And I was working with this guy. I was working with this college counselor. And he's like, you're going to Emerson. And I was like, why? And he said, because it's the only place I can get you in.
That's actually a pretty good school, though.
But at the time, it was 1988.
Yeah.
Emerson was not what it is today. And so I'm like, what's Emerson College? And he's like, it's this liberal arts communications school in the Back Bay of Boston. And I was like, all right, cool. And I went into Emerson on academic probation.
Oh,
I had like a contingent acceptance, and it was just because of like my dreadful high school career, and I was an older student. I was like
32.
Yeah, I was 32. No, and when I left Emerson, again, I had a degree in communication, politics, and law. It was like communication studies, and I had learned somewhere along the line that Supreme Court justices get a job for life. And that was interesting
You
to
were
me.
in on that.
I was like, oh man, like a job for life. You can never get fired? Like, how awesome is that? And so literally my career as an aspiring legal professional began. And I got a job as working in the consumer complaint section at the Attorney General's office. And basically I would answer phones from old ladies in Roslindale who were getting their houses repossessed because they were mailing the checks to the wrong bank for 10 years.
Please hold. Click.
Right. And then,
The sheriff's at my door.
yeah, it was and then I got a job working for the second largest law firm in the world at the time as a paralegal.
Who did they represent? What were they after?
Big time corporate America.
Okay.
The biggest corporations in the world was
The biggest thieves in the world.
I mean, like huge. They would defend huge class action lawsuits, and they just had an incredible reputation. And they hired the smartest people out of the best law schools, and it was the best legal representation really that you can get.
And was that a who type of job to get in there, or how did you know someone to get in there, or was it your academics, or how did you weasel your way in there?
You'll never have to ask that a question again, because every single job I've ever gotten is because of somebody I know.
Awesome. The American way.
Right.
The Hollywood way, the American way.
Like literally, like anything I've ever done has been because of a relationship that I had with somebody. So I got a job there. I was working there for 2 years, and finally, I finally threw in the towel after working.
What were you doing there? Like, what was your...
I was just like cannon fodder. I mean, I was a paralegal. We were just doing managing incredibly complex cases, like the case file. There's 1 million documents, and we were responsible. I need a document 273576C, and my job was to wade into this this case file room with 5 million documents and be able to pull that one out of a file and be like, oh, here you go. And it was everything from I would take notes during different meetings, and it was just grunt work and running down to the courthouse and filing stuff. And some of the more interesting things is that I was sent on a mission to serve a guy a subpoena in South Carolina.
Did you give me a gun?
And it was they didn't give me a gun. They
you get one you can just get one in South Carolina though. You don't need a permit or anything, right?
So I was sent on this mission. It was like a Thursday afternoon at 2:00, and all of a sudden somebody walked into our little bullpen where we hung out, and they're like, "We need to serve a subpoena to somebody in South Carolina. Powers, you're up." And so
they throw you a flak jacket. Here you go. It is a ticket and a bulletproof vest.
So literally, here's the thing I had to serve them, and it's in I think it was like Spartanburg, South Carolina.
And you flew down there?
Literally, I left the office with my sport coat and my tie, my shirt, and my tie, and got in a plane and went.
You were like Dog the Bounty Hunter.
And yeah, and then. If I wore the glasses, I probably could have gotten away with it.
You weren't afraid the guy was going to shoot you in the face or something?
This was
corporate?
this is white collar. This is like really rich people suing each other over a deal.
Really rich people still shoot people.
So
you can't stereotype.
So I get on a plane and I fly down to South Carolina, and I rent a car. All I have is a credit card and my wallet. That's it.
How old are you?
Nothing. I'm right out of college, so I'm probably 20. I'm probably 22, 23 because I started late. I'm 23 years old, and I'm in Spartanburg, South Carolina. No idea where I.
They give you a fake badge?
No MapQuest. Nothing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there was no
nothing,
Google Maps, nothing like that. Yeah.
I had an address. So I got to find this guy. So
you're on the middle of the highway with your map spread over the hood of your Ford Granada.
Right, reading by the headlights, all right, where is this place? So I finally find this place. It's in this incredibly exclusive neighborhood, these huge houses, and I go up and the house is dark. I knock on the door and there's nobody there.
The maid answered?
So so I like go to like a diner or something, and I get dinner, and so I'm on a payphone. We had a bag phone. We had one of those
my God.
Motorola bag phones,
Yeah.
but I couldn't, like, the attorneys got to use that. I didn't get to use that. So I got to find a payphone. I call back to the guy that, my manager. I'm like, there's nobody there. He's like, well, just hang out, and, like, you gotta serve the subpoena. So get yourself a hotel.
Earn you $5.35 an hour.
Right. So I go back, I don't know, probably an hour and a half later, and I knock on the door, and the dude answers the door. Actually, it's his wife, and she's like, Gene, there's somebody here from that law firm in Boston to see you. And so he comes to the door, and he's like, oh, hi, I wasn't expecting to see you. And I was like, I know you weren't expecting to see me. Are you so-and-so? And he said, yeah. And I said, hey, you've been served.
Merry
and he's like,
Christmas.
what's this? And I said, well, I'm from the attorneys on the other side of the case, and we needed to serve you this. And like, literally, they had been away for like 3 weeks. They had just gotten home the night that I got there, and then so I mean, so there was stuff like that. There was, but anyway, I finally bowed out of that after working for 3 months without a day off, like 7 days a week, 3 months in a row.
All the grunt work that they hand you as you're expected to climb the ladder.
Yeah, and like the big badge of like honor there was when you worked 100 hours. You had 100 billable hours in a week.
Ugh, that's why I hate corporate America, dude.
so
Because they just
bad.
don't care.
They just grind and grind and grind. I saw like it's just like you see marriages fail, and you see people just like grinding and grinding. And I knew that it wasn't for me. And I left, and I spent a year just like learning to smell the roses again. It was pretty awesome because all I did was like save my money. I wasn't doing anything.
And were you living in Boston at the
I
time?
was living in the North End.
The North End, right?
Yeah. I lived there for 12 years.
That's a crazy place, especially when you're in your 20s.
Oh my God, it was amazing. It was so awesome. Like, who was I just taught? I saw something on Facebook the other day, and it was a guy. It was like the age old debate: Regina's or
Santarpio's.
yeah, and they were like talking about like which was a better pizza, and I'm looking at the guy who's eating the pizza. I'm like, oh my God, that's Corner Store Mark.
Oh yeah. I remember that place.
So-
Yeah. That closed. He closed like 2 or 3 years ago.
So I opened up my phone, and I still had his number, Corner Store Mark, and I sent him this text message, and I was like, was that you? And I included a link to the reel, and he's like, who is this? I'm like, it's Caleb. He's like, Caleb who? And I'm like, remember me? Like, and I rattled off a bunch of people that we were friends with.
Me, Nunzio, Carmine.
Right.
sorry.
And so he was like, oh my God, it is you. And like, he's retired now. And yeah, it was funny.
So you took a year off,
Got
trying to
a mo-
regroup,
Got a motorcycle.
got a bike,
Yep. Worked out. Watched
worked out,
cooking,
going to the gym,
watch-
tanning,
cooking shows.
cooking shows,
It was like
doing
one of
ecstasy.
The best times of my life. No ecstasy. I had moved on from that.
child stuff.
Right.
The 20s, man, is a great time of life. And you're right, you don't care. And then as you get older and start wanting more things, like a stable relationship, a house, comes more anxiety for some reason. I don't know why, but it just, you're carefree at that age. You don't care. You just got to run it around doing your own thing with no worries.
What's the thing that you remember the most about that time in your life?
In my 20s, where was I? I was working at Malden Hospital, actually up in the psych unit, like running groups for the patient. It was a locked psych unit, 22-bed psych unit. And I was living home with my parents, just not having any responsibility. It was just awesome. Like, if I remember I banged out sick for a week once and went on a cruise. I called out sick for an entire week. I came back with this tan. Oh, it was hilarious. But just not having to worry about anything. Just being free and having no bills. Or bills, you just throw them in the rubbish, get a parking ticket, you just rip it up and throw it away. You just didn't care. Yeah, I did that. That was in the 90s, and that's when I started doing the comedy stuff. And like, it was like either 92 or 93. They used to do the open mic, obviously Faneuil Hall, the Comedy Connection, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Open mic night, my first open mic, and it was hosted by this awesome. This guy was so awesome. He was not only an awesome comedian, he was just an awesome guy and a true gentleman. This guy Kevin Knox, he's fucking hilarious. And that was my first open mic night. And then there was just like started.
That was in your 20s.
Yeah. And at that time,
do you remember what the inspiration was for it?
just always liked. I was in high school. In school, I was the wallflower, and I think that's how a lot of these guys were like that in high school. A lot of comedians, you hear Joe Rogan talk about it, and Bill Burr and all those guys. They were not the wallflowers, but the quiet guys. And I was one of those quiet guys in high school that was just always moved around all the time. My parents we were always moving apartment to apartment, and never, I wasn't the jock. I tried that towards the end of my high school career. I just started getting into all these sports just because I wanted to do it before I got out of high school. And I was awful at all of them because I never played Little League, never did football. And all of a sudden, my junior, senior in high school, I'm showing up on the football field. And
it's like John Travolta in Grease.
Yeah. And all those kids,
the tight red shorts with the white trim and the tube socks.
Long distance running. I could see you doing that. Long distance.
You and what's her name? Olivia Newton-John.
And all those kids knew because they all played baseball since they were kids, Little League, and they all played Pop Warner. And they all had their circle. And then I show up out of nowhere. They're like, what the heck's this kid doing?
Yeah.
But I didn't care. Like my junior, senior year, I started getting into that attitude that I didn't care what people thought.
Right.
And then followed the comedy stuff. And then when I got out of high school, in and out of college. And
do you remember the first time you were in front of an audience?
So it was the open mics at the Comedy Connection. Then there was another guy. Remember Frank Santos, the hypnotist?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go see that show, and he used to call everybody up on stage and do the hypnotist.
Yeah, the R-rated hypnotist.
The R-rated hypnotist, and then started doing the comedy wedding stuff and the dinner improv theater down at the Wilbur Theater down in Boston, and it just kept going. And I loved being up on stage and just not having to try to fit into a group. I was up there doing my own thing, making people laugh. And I just kept doing it. And here we are 25 years later. But then the other guys that stuck with it, like I never really, probably like the past 10 years, I've tried to develop a more steady routine. But those guys like Bill Burr and Joe Rogan and all those guys that came up in the 80s and 90s, they stuck with it and went to New York and went to L.A. and that's all they did.
Even like Jay Leno.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Andover guy.
Yeah, went to Emerson.
Stuck with it. Yeah, all those guys just stuck with it, and that's all they did. And you got to eat a lot of crow doing that. You got to do all the crappy gigs. And
So what would you say is the difference between people like that have just that like maniacal commitment? Like they're willing to do anything for that, and like you or me.
I think it's the freedom of doing what you want. Like I did the whole, I tried to do the whole acting, extra work, and you're getting ordered around by some stupid 20-year-old kid with a headset on. Go over there to that set, go do this, go do that. You're getting $50 for the day, and you're on a set as an extra for like 12 hours. For not lately, and you just realize not that you're not appreciated, but if you can go off and do your own thing, it frees up. It just gives you so much more freedom in life, and you just mentally feel so much better doing your own, carrying out your own journey rather than working for the man, so to speak.
What do you think is the biggest difference between you today in front of an audience and you, back in your 20s?
That time of life life learning, like 20, 25 years of seeing. As you get older, you obviously become wiser. You're not so much of a knucklehead with a kind of an FU attitude. As you get older, you start to see more. You see more life, see more tragedy, see more uplifting moments, and you kind of combine all that, and just maturity. You become more mature. And,
But get into the nitty gritty on what's the difference between you in front of an audience today and the kid in your 20s. I mean, obviously we have experience. Like you've got 25 years of life experience, like you said, like relationships, kids, careers, bills, tragedy, highlights, lowlights. But like the guy on stage,
more insightful material, more meaningful material, more less. Back then, you go for the low hanging fruit. You're dropping the F-bombs, you're doing the dirty jokes, because you're not exposed to life. Like, you haven't really seen life. There are some people at that age that maybe had a little bit more of a rough upbringing, or more, quote unquote, out on the streets and seeing things. But I think as you get older and you get more life experiences, you can deliver that and kind of get the audience to relate to it a little bit more. Like I said, you're in your 20s. You're doing the dirty jokes. You're doing college gigs. You're trying to get the cheap laugh out of the shock value,
right?
Of a.
I think it's a little bit like in life in general. There's the I've got such a better idea of who I am today,
right?
And like as a 22-year-old comic, you have no idea who you are. So how could you know who you are as a comic today? You know who you are as a person, and that informs your understanding of who you are as a comic. Your jokes are more sophisticated. Your jokes are more thoughtful. Your jokes are more mature because you're a better, more complete version of yourself.
Right, and it's like that old adage, what would you say to yourself if you could talk to yourself 20, 25 years ago?
Right.
But you can't. But then I make that my old joke that I always say: there's no future in the past. So you can't think. But you got to take all those experiences and turn them into life lessons, and know what not to do.
Yeah.
So we moved. So you got to you get out of the hood and you delivered your papers. You and I meet. I'm at BZ.
Working with a psychopath. You want to tell that story? Go ahead. It's one of the greatest stories of my life.
Working at that. Back then, it's like you would see on TV, like some of the shows you would see on TV of how crazy working in an environment like that, like radio, TV, or even recruiting. When I was working for the staff and recruiting company during Y2K, like people were just, it was just crazy. Like everybody's just doing drugs and selling. And you'd go out after work out to like 3, 4 in the morning.
Crazy.
And you just thought it was only on TV, but it was just real. And then you seeing it for real, and you're like, oh my God, this is really real. People in the bathroom doing drugs and coke.
This is just TV. This is real life. Like, this is how people live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the crazy stuff. I don't want to tell that story. Let's not tell that one. But that was fun.
Yeah,
those days were fun.
That was a crazy.
And,
all right, someday we'll have to tell that story. We'll have to change it in a lot of really meaningful ways, so nobody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But it speaks to this idea that, like, you never really know who you're dealing with.
Oh my God.
And I've had, like, there's been probably 3 people in my life, and that other unnamed individual, so make it 4, who really turned out to be unlike anything I thought they were.
Like Dexter.
Full 100% Dexter.
That was like a Dexter without getting deep into the story.
Yeah. So there was another guy that I knew who like ran his own business and then ended up like, I mean, I hung out with this guy a lot. We used to double date. His girlfriend knew my girlfriend, and we hung out a lot. And it turned out the guy was like, he ended up getting indicted on, I mean, all of these, like, I mean, it was all white collar crime, but embezzlement and like fraud. And, he ended
They're
up,
the best actors. Those are the best
ended up going to jail.
narcissistic, sociopath
Oh, man.
people.
And you're like, whoa, I hung out with that dude. And he had like a whole other thing going on.
I'll just say, I remember I was in Florida on vacation when I was working at the station, and my boss would call me. He goes, so and so is dead, and I went, what?
I was sitting in my cube, and my boss came over with a copy of the Herald, and he's like, "Is this the guy that you was in your sales?" And there was a whole thing about this dude in the Herald, and I was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
that was him."
and we used to go on sales calls, and I remember he took me for a ride. He goes, "Oh, let's go get lunch." And it was just good. I just really liked the guy. The super nice guy. Let's go get lunch, and
They're like that. They're very likable.
just driving around, and next thing you know, I'm in the hood. I'm like,
What do we do?
I want to go home.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, that was a crazy job. That was fun. And then I realized with the radio and the media stuff, I was better at, it was a corporation. You had to make money for the stockholders, the shareholders. And, you're going out talking to these business owners about how great the advertising is going to work for them. And there's no guarantee in any of that crap. You can spend $1 billion in advertising. There's no guarantee it's going to work. They didn't give you a guarantee. You got to have a good.
You're selling airtime.
Yeah, you got to have a
You're
good
selling
message.
slots on the radio.
Yeah, and I realized I was better working with the business owner and helping the business owners directly,
Right.
and helping them really make a plan to grow the business. And I left. My second kid was born. I went in with a duffel bag, cleaned up my desk, and went on the agency side, and that's it. I rode off into the sunset and just helped the clients now.
What happened to me was I was coming across problems that, that wasn't really the right wrench for the nut. And I wanted so badly to help people that I left, and I did the same thing. I was like, I'm going to do my own thing because I want to be able to solve any problem I want to help solve. And so, yeah, that was my 6 or 7 years as a business coach, executive coach, consultant, and just like got to learn about like the most amazing businesses and, watch small businesses function. And
How did that work?
I saw the best and the worst. I saw like,
How many dumb people that want to own their own business that just don't know how to run a business?
I see people like that have a dream that turns into a nightmare.
But would you went in and found it, you kind of had them, not that you hypnotize people, but you would go in and get them to admit all the broken parts of their business.
I don't know who said it, but like nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so that was my approach, was like, I got to care about these people. Like I got to get invested in, because they're not going to like I got to earn the right to do anything, to work with, to have this person do something that I suggest. I've got to earn the right to make that suggestion. You can't just come across and say, you really need to do this. And part of that process of earning the right was really understanding, like, what's the story behind this business? What's this story behind you? And like, why are you doing this? Because what happens so often in small businesses that, you start something because you believe that you can do it better. And, just because you're good at like negotiating media deals, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at running a business. And I'm the 11 millionth guy to say that into a microphone. And that never changes. And so what I tried to do as an executive coach consultant was help just to raise. So you've got a technical skill. I can do this particular job, whether that's negotiating media deals or turning a wrench for a plumber or selling cars. I've got a technical competency here, but I don't know how to run a business. So what I tried to do was to raise that IQ,
even out the scale,
the business IQ, so that your business could actually perform, and you weren't the only person that was turning the wrenches and stuff.
Right, or trying to be the only guy, and I'm sure you ran into this a lot. That guy that didn't want to outsource everything, was trying to do everything in his business. He was going to be the media buyer,
right, and
take care of the building,
and that's what creates the nightmare.
Right.
Because you're working 80 hours a week. You're, based on hourly output, you're the most underpaid employee in the business.
Underperforming.
You're the one that has the most at risk. And, I saw everything. I saw businesses tear marriages apart. I saw businesses fail. I saw people,
and some of these just put all their lifelong earnings
everything
into the business.
Everything into it. And finally saying enough. There was a husband and wife, they ran a restaurant, and the restaurant was
so hard.
It was ruining their marriage. And that was the shortest consulting gig I had. I was like, look, it's over. You can't keep doing this.
Some people don't want to hear that either.
But somebody finally gave them permission to say enough. I finally gave them permission to say it's okay to throw in the towel.
Yeah. How long are you gonna tread water for? How long are you gonna do this?
How long are you gonna suffer?
Right.
And that was it. And these people got their life back.
No price on that. Hotels. I know you did some work with some hotels and
I got to learn so much about so many different businesses, and that's just to help problem solving in professional services, the trades, manufacturing, hospitality. I had cool clients in online, e-commerce businesses.
And you and I joke around. I know you always joke around because I'm frugal. I always say cheap. But when people say, it's funny when people go down that road of investment or whatever, what it's going to cost to bring you in. And I make the joke, why does the dentist get, $3,000 or $5,000 to do the implant? Or why is the plumber, when he comes to your house, get $400, $500 to stop the leak? It's do you know how to do it? When people, just media, for example, it's do you know what you're going to lose by trying to do it yourself? Or do you know what kind of problems you're going to encounter trying to do it? It's like me trying to do trying to tile a floor. My brother's a contractor. I was like, can I tile a floor? Yeah. How many times am I going to do it in my life? Maybe once or twice.
You watch enough YouTube videos, you can do anything.
Yeah, right. And I did my floor. It looks like a jigsaw puzzle. But that's the thing, is stay with what you're good at. And it's okay to spend a little money to get somebody that's been doing it their whole life to do it. And,
right.
And I just say that reflecting on, like you said, you're teaching or training people how to run the business, work at the business, not in the business.
Right. And the other thing that I learned is that every problem in a business is directly related to the founder, CEO, owner. Tell me all the problems in your business, and people can tell you. They're good at that. They know what they are.
But they don't want to admit that it's them.
And they can't.
Yeah.
They can't. So they need somebody like me to say, you know what, all of that stuff is it's directly related to you. I could give a dozen examples of how your
idiocracy,
your
stupidity,
your desire to be liked,
yeah.
Impacts the performance of the business. Leadership is a popularity contest. As long as my people like me, that means that I'm a good leader. Can't fire people. It's
Yeah.
too hard to fire people because I don't want anybody to dislike me. I mean, that's legit. Like there's that wiring inside of entrepreneurs. Some of them.
That's why it's better for them to probably bring in a manager or somebody to run the business where they're kind of once removed.
Yeah, that doesn't have the head trash, the whatever the managerial baggage that some people carry with them.
So what's the next? So I know because of privacy issues, we can't go on to what you're doing nowadays for the most part.
I worked at a bunch of startups and early stage businesses. I've done a lot of biz dev, sales management. I did, worked at a bunch of management consulting firms, and and today I'm back in the financial services world. And I'm enjoying it, and I think one of the things that really has always driven me is that I want like I'll pick something to do. Like this is definitely something way outside of my comfort zone. I've never if 5 years ago if you said, "Oh, this is the field that you're going to end up in," I would have laughed at you. I was like, "There's no way I'm going to end up doing that." But it was because the guy who hired me, I worked with that guy 10 years ago, and if he was a roofer, I'd be roofing right now. I just
And not having any qualms about it.
right,
Yeah.
right. Like that's the guy that I wanted to work with. I love working with this guy, but for me, I want to be good at whatever it is that I'm doing.
And happy.
My happiness comes from a lot of my happiness comes from being good at something. Like I get a sense of accomplishment, and when. But the interesting thing is that this one's been really hard for me to get good at. And
Can you talk about what you had to? I know we have to kind of dance around a little bit. Can you talk about what you had to get the qualification to get to?
yeah, he said, I need your help. I mean, so basically, I bugged this guy for 8 years until he finally said, "I need your help." And I was like, "Great. When do I start?" And he said, "After you pass your Series 66 and your Series 7."
And for those of people that don't know, what is that real
Those
quick?
those are SEC registrations in order to become licensed to work in the financial services industry.
Okay.
It's a professional designation.
So they can keep track of who's robbing who.
They can keep track of you. And so he said, "You can come, you can start after you pass your exams." And I was like, "Oh my God, really?" He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, those brain cells went dormant 30 years ago. I'm never going to be able to do this. And it's kind of interesting. So I thought, but I had a little bit of confidence. And so I got one of those online courses, a couple $100, and I'm like, I'm going to smoke this. And after about 2 weeks of throwing the mouse around the home office going, I'm never going to make it, failing my practice exams, I went to my wife and I was like, I think I've made a terrible mistake.
What am I doing?
And she said, I bet there's people that help people like you. And I was like, oh, yeah, you might be right. And she said like a tutor.
To get you through the course?
To get you to pass the test.
What were the speed bumps in the? I mean, you're a pretty intelligent guy. What were the speed bumps for the average Joe like me that I would understand? What was the problem?
It was just the volume of material that you had to remember.
Like the math? Was it math or the law?
Securities laws, regulations. It's all gone. Most of it's gone now because honestly, I use about 1% of it in what I do. I have to be registered.
It's the same with the medical stuff. I was doing some
Yeah.
of the medical nursing stuff and all that. And believe it or not, there's a lot of math in it for some reason. Just medication stuff and all this BS.
But a lot of that's just common
use
sense. It's a lot of it comes down to just common sense.
I did a short stint working in the ER. Dude. I remember going in the back and seeing the doctor looking in books while the patient was in the other room.
Reading up on it.
Yeah.
Reading up on this one.
Fell asleep during that class, Doc? Okay, they're in their coding right now, just so you know.
Right, you'll figure it
Yeah,
out. You'll figure it out. If you watch the video on like 1.5, it'll go faster.
Yeah, YouTube it. He'll be all right. The nurse is in there right now.
So like I was saying, I've always been driven by a desire to be good at something.
That keeps the spark going.
And and so this particular tour of duty has been hard for me to get good at. But that's the challenge. And
Well, can I say the type of client you're looking for?
No, we don't need to do that.
Okay.
But because like maybe this is the last stop on
last hurrah.
This maybe. I mean, what's funny is that like there was a moment probably 90 seconds, 2 minutes ago where I thought to myself, there's still one thing left, and I don't know. There's
Pickleball?
No, not pickleball. It's how my story, because we didn't get too much into it, but like, I got an interesting story. Maybe that's for part 2. But like,
We just got to speak to our law team before we start divulging all this other stuff.
so, but like the trajectory of my life and like the circumstances around like losing my dad when I was 15 and how that changed the course of my life. There's a part of me that has always felt that story and everything after that could be really helpful for people. And
That's a great story.
That's sort of the thing that's been gnawing at me for years is how do I tell that story? How do I use my own personal story as a way to help other people?
Can we just throw a teaser? Because we'll come back. We're gonna run out of time, but throw a teaser on
Sure.
your dad real quick.
Sure. So every man in my family has always gone to sea. Whether like on my mother's side of the family, it was the Navy, and on my father's side of the family, it was the Merchant Marine. Like my dad was a merchant mariner. His dad, his brother, my uncle was in subs. My grandfather on my mother's side, he was in the Navy. He was a boxer in the Navy. And that was like my destiny. Like I was destined for that. Like we got salt water running through our veins. As you can tell by the last 30 minutes of this conversation, I didn't end up going to sea, and there's a pretty profound reason why. And I would go like with my dad when he was on the, he would work on the ferry boats at Woods Hole. And it was like bring your kid to work day, and I'd hang out in the engine room with my dad on the ferry boats, and I was the wiper boy with the rag, and I'd wipe the gauges, and like there was just this charm and this this incredible like the allure of the sea, and I went and I visited my dad in New York. He would work on like tankers, like oil tankers, and big ships that would sail all over the world and bring grain from Israel to Amsterdam, and he would, and it doesn't really lend itself to like a stable marriage and a family life, because you're gone like 6 months at a clip. And there was I was 15, and I was going to get my big introduction to life at sea. I was going to meet my dad in Virginia. And he was on a coal ship that was going from Norfolk, Virginia to Fall River. And they'd load up the ship in Virginia, and they would sail up the coast to Fall River, drop the coal off, go back, and it was just like his gig. That's what he did.
Coal.
Yep.
Dude, I don't even know. They even still use coal?
They sure do. Lots of it. Lots of it.
Liquid gold. Liquid gold.
And so I was going to fly down. I was taking 2 days off from school. It was like, I was in 8th grade. or I was in ninth grade, and I had the plane tickets, and like my dad was going to pick me up at the airport. We were going to get on the boat, and we were going to sail overnight, and it never happened. And he called me probably the day before I was supposed to go down there, and he said, "You can't come. The weather's going to be bad." And I was hopping up and down. I was like, "Dad, come on. This is like, we've been planning this forever." And he's like, "No, you're not going to have any fun. The weather's going to be bad, and you can't come." And like, I was like in tears, begging him. And he's like, "No." And that's it. Not another word. And I was like, ugh.
Yeah, and you're 15.
Yeah, and I was like,
so-
everything. Like the day off from school, flying on a plane, getting on a ship. Like, I mean, that was everything.
Like
and
one of the World Series.
and hanging out with my dad for 3 days. Like, that was just, it was like everything. And 2 days later, like, the ship sank.
Yeah.
And
What was the name of the ship?
the Marine Electric.
The Marine Electric.
And at the time, 35 guys went in the water and 3 came out. And my dad wasn't one of the people that came out.
And we can cover it on the next episode, but there is a story after that.
Oh, there's like, that's
It's amazing.
I mean, that's like that's really like my life story. And how I now see that experience. I've got I got a 16-year-old boy, and I look at him and I'm like, God, losing your dad at that age. Like, if I just dropped out of the picture, like,
Right.
man. And, yeah, that's the story for another day.
Yeah, that'll be on the next episode. But real quick, without getting into your work, just because of all the disclaimer stuff you'd have to do, and we'll wrap it up with this. You wanted to do an event for some clients. Can you just real quick about the Navy SEAL? I find that I think the audience will love it. You would try to get some clients together.
Yeah. So one of the things that the people that work with us, they're wealthy people, and the thing about working with wealthy people is wealthy people can afford anything they want.
Because they're spoiled
So
a-holes.
So no, they just have access to like everything.
Right.
And so like, oh, we're gonna get a box at the TD Garden, big deal.
Right,
We're
true.
gonna go to this or we're gonna go to that. And so like I want to build a community of like wealthy people who see me as a really interesting guy who has super cool stuff. Like get on Caleb's distribution list, because that dude like creates really cool things to do.
He makes it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And so through the help of my friends, one of the things that we did was, on the face of it was like going to a gun range and shooting guns. But the thing that made it really cool was that we got a couple of former Navy SEALs to be there with us, and gave like coaching and tips and pointers, and then
On how to fire an AR-15.
and like you got to see somebody who had achieved a level of mastery with a handgun like you've never seen anything like it. I mean, these guys are so good at what they do, and like you get to hang out and hear stories and talk about stuff, and so like that's one of them. That was really, really cool. There's stuff around cars that I want to do, like, and again, it's about access and exclusivity,
Right.
Because it's not about money.
Yeah.
It's
They're bored. Like,
Right.
I'm giving clients tickets to like the 50-yard line. And, well, those tickets were nice, but why weren't we in the box? It's like,
Right.
dude, what?
Right.
First of all, you went for free.
How about you want to come see a private car collection? Like that's interesting. Like a collection of amazing vehicles that you never in a million years would be able to see because you didn't even know that they existed.
It's about the experience.
About the experience,
Yeah.
and like being able to provide my community of colleagues like access. So that's that's one of my missions, is like, what are the coolest things that I can come up with that that create that build that community for me.
One of a kind opportunity that they couldn't, no matter how much money they have, they couldn't figure it out or do it on their own.
They couldn't do it on their own.
Yeah, cool, man.
And so that's the thing that I'm constantly looking for are new ideas like that. Like
Give Shane Leno a call. He's got a good car
he's
collection.
got a hell of a car collection. Yeah. There's some pretty amazing car collections around here.
Yeah,
I've found that out doing my research, and there are also some boutique restoration companies that do some amazing work. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm up to today.
I love it. All right, folks, that's it. We're running out of time. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time. It's the Mikey V Show. Caleb, thank you again, buddy.
Good
Dominic,
to
our
be
producer, thank you, bud.
Nice job, Dominic.
See you soon, folks.
You talk too much.